Okay.
Good morning and welcome to Grace Bible Church here in Rome, Georgia, January the 1st, 2023. Unbelievable New Year's Day. Looking forward to a good time of fellowship one with another in the Word. We do have communion together this morning. We have a number of folks out ill with viruses and recovering from things such as that, but we're tickled to death to be back here at Grace. We did miss 2 weeks due to illness and folks being gone and so forth, that we did not have church, something that has not happened but one other time that I know of in the past 37 years, so we apologize for that, but it was necessary, and we appreciate the Lord getting us through all of these difficult days. You know, we heard a whole lot in the past year or 2 years, I guess, about how we are to follow the science. How many of you have heard that phrase in the last few years? Follow the science. Follow the science. Follow the science. And many times it's been with reference to physical health issues like COVID and then the vaccines and so forth. Good old Dr. Fauci, that's supposed to be in charge of the health of the United States, came up with so many contradictory statements. All of them were based on science, according to him. And when he was criticized on one occasion in a hearing, he said, "It's easy to criticize, but those criticizing are really criticizing science, because I represent science. I am the science. If I say it, it's scientific and science, and therefore everybody should follow the science, and I am science." And that's quite a proclamation for a wizened old man to make, but he made it nevertheless. He said, "I'm not going to be around here forever, but science is going to be here forever. And if you damage science, you are doing something very detrimental to society long after I leave." And that's what I worry about. Oh, thank goodness Dr. Fauci is worried about us. He is the science. He's worried about science and its reputation, but what he never stops to consider is science is based on what? The laws of nature. Where did the laws of nature come from? Did scientists make up the law of gravity? Were we all floating around one day and some guy came up and thought, you know, it would be better if we weren't all floating around, but if we had gravity, and so he invented a law of gravity? No. God came up with the law of gravity, thank you very much. And every other natural law that has been able to be observed by the quote-unquote scientist, God is the originator of those laws. The laws of God are hidden in the hearts of men. Even men who have never seen a written Bible have the laws of God written on their consciousness. This is why there are some universal truths around the world that men have sought to live their lives around. More recently, science, or so-called science, supposed science, tells us that men can become women and women can become men. But ironically, they cannot tell us what a woman is or what a man is. They tell us there are hundreds of genders, but there's really only two sexes. We are still mammals, and there are male and female mammals. That's just the way it is. It has always been that way. But this is called into question in what? In the name of science. We say, do you realize that in the state of California right now, they have passed a law that any child that wants a sex change operation, they will give it to them. It does not matter, and it's written in their law, it doesn't matter what state laws may conflict with this. So if you have a child, you want him to have a sex change operation, you take him to California, it does not matter any other law that is in existence, they will perform a supposed sex change on that individual. I told John the last time I was at VA and going through the triage where they check your blood pressure and all, and they ask you if you've thought of suicide and all of these things. They asked me, what is your sexual preference? And I told them in very preacher-like terms, it's none of your damn business, because it's not. I said, will you ask me next if I'm pregnant? That affects me as well and my health. The world has gone crazy. The United States government has gone crazy. And they are espousing things claiming it's science. Climate change. Oh, it's scientific. They called it, what originally the cold wave that was going to come in the 70s and kill everybody, was going to freeze to death. That didn't happen. Then they started talking about, oh, it's going to overheat and we're all going to die of heat stroke. And that didn't fly very well. So now they say climate change. Nobody can argue with climate change, but we can argue with what causes climate change. It's been going on since the earth has been here. It's not caused by my deodorant, thank you very much, nor by my gas-powered car. It's part of the cycles of life. It's part of nature. It's part of the way things are that are the established order and law of things. Areas of the world that used to produce food and blossom are desert now. The area around the Euphrates, all over the world, changes are evident from climate that has constantly changed ever since we've been on the face of the earth. But in the name of science, they want to control every aspect of our lives. But the thing that gets me more than anything is when they have these people, the leaders of our government, in congressional hearings, and ask them, sir, what is a woman? Madam, what is a woman? They have no idea how to answer. Isn't that incredible? Who would have thought we would have lived in a day and age such as this? Genesis 1, God said, let us make man in our image after our likeness. And let them have dominion over the fish of the sea and over the birds of the heavens and over the livestock and over all the earth and over every creeping thing that creeps on the earth. So God created man in his own image. In the image of God created him, male and female, he created them. Adam and Eve. Not Adam and Steve. Not Eve and Yvette. Adam and Eve. Male and female. That's it. He did not create any other genders or anything else like that. And God blessed them and said to them, be fruitful and multiply and fill the earth and subdue it and have dominion over the fish of the sea and over the birds of the heavens and over every living thing that moves on the earth. That's pretty simple, isn't it? Male and female, he created them. It has always been that way. All mammals are male or female, period. And we're still mammals, I believe, scientifically speaking. Rather than simply listen to the words of the God that made all things, man chooses instead to manufacture a science to appease the masses. Now, you need to hold that thought for just a moment. You know, we began our studies in the book of Romans 4 years ago. In chapter 1, it says this, that the wrath of God is revealed from heaven against all ungodliness. This is not a popular thing to talk about. Excuse me, I failed to open to that passage yet. I'm working on it. I know where it is. My hands. I guess I should have turned to where I had it marked, shouldn't I? For the wrath of God is revealed from heaven against all ungodliness and unrighteousness of men who hold the truth in unrighteousness. Because that which may be known of God is manifest in them, for God hath shown it unto them. For the invisible things of him from the creation of the world are clearly seen, listen, being understood by the things that are made, even his eternal power and Godhead, so that they are without excuse. Because when they knew God, they glorified him not as God. Neither were thankful, but became vain in their imaginations. And their foolish heart was darkened. Professing themselves to be wise, they became fools. And changed the glory of the incorruptible God into an image made like unto corruptible man and birds and four-footed beasts and creeping things. Wherefore God gave them up to the uncleanliness through the lust of their own hearts, to dishonor their own bodies between themselves. Listen, who exchanged the truth of God for a lie, and worshiped and served the creature more than the Creator, who is blessed forever. Paul concluded that passage in verse 32 when he said, though they know God's righteous decree that those who practice such things deserve to die, they not only do them, but give approval to those who practice them. We are in such a crazy time in our world today. The things that are being taught to children in high school can get you put into prison. Can get you put into prison. They will not even allow parents to read these things in public hearings for parents and teachers. They will threaten to have them arrested for saying the things that are being taught to 5 and 6 and 7-year-old children about sexual deviation in hopes of making it more and more acceptable. What a day and age. And it's all done, by the way, in the name of science. The world evidently loves science. You remember 1 John 2:17, love not the world, neither the things that are in the world, and if any man love the world, the love of the Father is not in him. For all that is in the world, listen, 3 things here. Get these, we've talked about them many times. The lust of the flesh, and the lust of the eyes, and the pride of life is not of the Father, but of the world. That covers every sin that man can commit. The lust of the flesh, the lust of the eyes, and the pride of life. That's a comprehensive statement that God makes for us in 1 John 2:16. But listen, the world passeth away, and the lust thereof. But he that doeth the will of God abideth forever. Now the world can tell you this is okay, and science say this is all right, and science say that fetus in the mother's womb is not a baby. It's not a human being. That's what they said about the Indians. That's what Hitler said about the Jews. That's what the German people believed about the Jews. They are not really human beings. There were thousands that escaped from the death camps only to go in the villages and be turned in by the people in those villages after seeing them emaciated as they were. They were not human beings. Science said they were not human beings. And some of the policies that the Germans used in World War II, they got from the Democrats that controlled the United States during the Indian Wars and the philosophies that they had. World thoughts go worldwide. All of the abortions come from euthanasia. Kill off the weak. We have killed 70 million Americans by abortions. That's 10 times the number of Jews that they killed in Germany alone, not let alone the other 73 million people that died in World War II. But we've killed almost that many in Planned Parenthood and the hospitals and doctors' offices around the United States since 1972 or 3, whenever that stupid thing was passed by 5 justices on the Supreme Court. Love not the world, neither the things in the world. I need to remind you again as we start 2023. When we talk about the world, we're talking about the cosmos. an ordered system. In the context of the New Testament, it is often used to refer to the sum total of human life in the ordered world, considered alienated and hostile to God. Cosmos refers to the earthly things which seduce from God. It is not only the physical world, but also the ordered system over which Satan is the head. He is the prince of the power of the air. I've read you this definition. I will read it to you again today because repetition is the key to learning. Mr. Trench, a Greek scholar of great renown, gives this term, the world, this meaning. He says, all that floating mass of thoughts, opinions, maxims, speculations, hopes, impulses, aims, aspirations, at any time current in the world, which it may be impossible to seize and accurately define, but which constitute a most real and effective power, being the moral or immoral atmosphere which at every moment of our lives we inhale inevitably to exhale. The world system, those thoughts that are out there. During the 1700s, there was a world thought of revolution, wasn't there? We had a revolution here in the United States of America against Great Britain, and we overthrew the monarchy, and we freed ourselves from the domination of kings and so forth. Same thing was happening in, what's the name of that country? Oh, yes, France. They had a great revolution over there about the same time with the people rising up, the French Revolution. Interesting, a great difference in the French Revolution and the revolution we had in America, but it was prevalent. Brazil had a revolution about the same time. The world thought system floating around the world, and everybody gets on board with it. Have you seen how that works? You know, oh, everybody's got to wear a mask. Don't wear a mask, lose your job, get kicked out of the military, can't work. We'll put you on welfare there because we want everybody on welfare, so nobody works and we control everything. That's where that's all going. It's a world thing. It's not just in the United States. It's part of that mass of floating ideas that goes around that people pick up on. Kill unborn babies. They are not human beings. We have become experts at the slaughter of the innocents, and we do it in the name of a woman's right to choose. The baby has no choice. Only the woman can. She could choose not to get pregnant, but she chooses rather a different route. And then she gets to choose. You realize I have seen recently people speaking out and saying that mother should have the right to kill that child until they're up to 18 years old. If they are disobedient, non-productive, uneducated. I don't even have to make stuff up. If you saw what was in my illustration file, it's ridiculous. Let me tell you something. Have you ever wondered where the metric system came from, by the way? I mean, you know, they started trying to cram it down our throat 50 years ago in school when I was there. They're still trying to cram it down our throat with the metric system. Where did it start? France. When did it start? Amazingly, at the time of the French Revolution. What was the purpose in it? To eradicate anything in the people's minds connected with Christianity or the old order. Did you realize that? After the bloody triumph over the French monarchy in 1792, the French revolutionary government, known as the Terror, because they ruled by terrorism, was intent on cleansing citizens' lives of all influences of the aristocracy and the church. They were going to create a new society based on reason and rationality. For many years, French scientists have been trying to replace their traditional arbitrary system of weights and measures with a decimal system. The climate of reform and reason was perfect for implementing their ideas. In 1793, the Committee of Public Instruction approved a bold proposal that the basic unit of distance, the foot, be replaced with the meter. The unit equal to 1/1,000,000th of the length of the arc from the equator to the North Pole. Distance, therefore, was measured in multiples of 10 centimeters, millimeters, kilometers. The quart was replaced with the liter and the ounce with the gram. And it opened the door for another innovation. They say that this was a move by those of the world, those in the French Revolution, to wipe out any memory or anything from previous times and replace it with their view. It was called the science. Does that sound familiar? Scientific. This is what the science says we must do. Science says it. Completely eradicate the old order of the French. Now, Mayo had a little bit different idea about how to do that. They killed 10 to 20 million Chinese. Stalin had an idea about how to reorder things. He killed 10, 20, 30, 40, 50 million citizens of Russia and the Ukraine to establish his order of how things should be. But this little idea of the metric system grew out of the French Revolution. The new calendar still had 12 months in a year, but every month had 10 weeks called decades. Isn't that crazy? But this committee that did this under the guidance of a mathematician by the name of Charles Gilbert Rome, the committee set forth the task of creating a metric clock and a metric calendar that would reflect their belief in science over religion. Tick-tock metric. Better learn it. That's the way everybody in the world does it. Could it be part of the world system, all that floating mass of thought that's anytime present, which at any time is there, but you can't quite put your hand... Do you realize Robespierre, the one that was one of the main guys in that reign of terror where they chopped everybody's heads off? If you were to read his writing, he would sound like a modern-day Democrat. Help the little people. It's all about the poor. We must take... You know, they put out a minimum wage then for the French government the first time, that all the people had to be paid a minimum wage. You ever heard of the minimum wage before? We want the minimum wage. We must have it. Everybody got that. And they're still crying about it today. All this stuff came out the French Revolution. The replacement of anything religious by science. Doesn't matter what God said. Listen to what we say. This is Clay. I got to read you at least this much of this. The new calendar had 12 months in a year, but every month had 3 10-day weeks called decades. Isn't that great? You still got 1 day a week off, but a week was 10 days long and not 7 days long. The remaining 5 days of the year that weren't covered were celebrated as feast days for the common man. And they named those days Virtue Day, Genius Day, Labor Day, Reason Day, Rewards Day, and in leap years, they have Revolution Day. They got it all figured out. The metric time system was even more confusing than the calendar. Each day was divided into 10 decimal hours, each hour split into 100 minutes, and each minute into 100 seconds. A decimal second was shorter than a traditional second, but a decimal minute was longer than a traditional minute. A lot of you have been confused when I promised to preach 10 minutes, and it seems to you to go longer. Follow the science here. I'm on the metric time system. Minutes are longer in the metric system. If I'd have known that, we'd have gone to the metric years ago here. Listen, the new names for the months and the days were invented by a poet named Philippe Fabre d'Elegante. Can't you just see him with his little puppy sleeves and all the faggy stuff that comes out of the French? He named the months according to the natural events occurring at that time of year and then rhymed them by season. They were vintage, snow, mist, frost, snow, rain, wind, sprouting, blossoming, meadow, harvest, heat, and fruit. Those were the names that he came up with, and the British press, who were not big fans of the French, lampooned these as wheezy, sneezy, freezy, slippy, drippy, nippy, showery, flowery, bowery, weedy, heedy, and sweetie. So we can understand those. Does this sound like anything to you where we rename things? I saw a member of the cabinet being introduced, and they introduced themselves with their name and their chosen pronouns. Hello, my name is Fruit Loop, and my chosen pronouns are Sweetie Pie and whatever. I don't know who it was, but it was one of the highest ranking officials in the United States introducing themselves and telling the world what their pronouns were that they had to be called by. Follow the science, boys and girls. Listen to the science out there. No, listen to God Almighty and His Word and what He says. It's the only thing that really makes a difference. Ironically, for the French, most people did not adopt the French calendar or the French time system. Metric system has been forced down people's throats for the past 300 years, and they're still trying to promote it in this country. But most people continued counting time and dates just as they always had. The people who had their heads chopped off at that time, many of them were priests and religious leaders of the day. It was an effort to wipe out religion. It's been going on in our country since they banned the Bible, any mention of God. There's nothing in the Constitution saying that you cannot mention God in government. That's not constitutional. It's found nowhere in there. It was in a letter that Thomas Jefferson wrote somebody, and they have made that the law of the land, that you cannot even mention the name of God or Jesus Christ. I guarantee you there are schools in America today that have areas set aside for Muslim children to bow to Mecca 5 times a day, and they will not interfere with that under any circumstance. But do not mention the name of Jesus Christ in a public school. You will be ostracized, criticized. In the case of France, they would cut your head off. Here, you will simply be disenfranchised from society. Disagree with them on any point, the revolution is still going on. Good old Elon Musk, as long as he told the progressive line and followed the science, they were all for him. In fact, he advanced science. He's the one that came up with the rocket that goes up and comes back and lands where it's supposed to land. Our government couldn't do that with all of their science, but Elon Musk did. But then, oh my goodness, he went against the proletariat, or they went against the terror that rules this country and said things that they didn't like. And now they're totally trying to destroy him. Total destruction. Maybe not again. Yet, under one of our previous administrations, they actually had plans to inter people that disagreed with them, and they figured they would lose at least 20 million to death during that interment. Forgot about that, didn't you? I don't forget things like that. These things are real. This is the world, folks. Love not the world or the things in the world, for all that is in the world is going to perish. And then I were talking about the rapture. I said there's nothing stopping the rapture. There is no sign that must be fulfilled before the rapture happens. There's not. Not one sign is given before the rapture, except the trumpet that we hear when we're called up to Him in a split second. In the clouds. In the twinkling of an eye, we're gone. Whatever number of the 2.3 billion Christians on the face of the earth that are true believers are going to be gone that day. 2 billion Muslims will still be here. The Mormons will still be here. The Jehovah's Witnesses will still be here. The Unitarians and the Episcopalians and all the others who denounce the Word of God will all still be here, and they will all follow the science, and they will follow anybody else that comes and leads them saying, peace, peace, peace. Probably the Muslim Mahdi, which is yet to come. Oh, we got to get off this. The years of our life are 70, or even by reason of strength 80, yet their span is but toil and trouble. They are soon gone. We fly away, says the psalmist in Psalm 90, verse 10. Who considers the power of your anger and your wrath according to the fear of you, speaking to God? So teach us to number our days, that we may get a heart of wisdom. Return, O Lord, how long? Have pity on your service. So teach us to number our days, that we may get a heart of wisdom. And then having a conversation. I do talk to my wife during the week when I can get away from the computer long enough and quit looking at YouTube. But occasionally we have conversations, and in that conversation we were talking about one of our good friends. And Annette was saying that they had the sweetest spirit and seemed to have a genuine, deep, and abiding walk with the Lord. Now, we all wish everybody saw us as that way, don't we? I mean, to be nice. But we all know people who have a very, very unique walk with the Lord. And you can think of some that you've known in your life that are Christians extraordinaire, not because they're going around telling you all the wonderful things they do, because of their relationship with the Lord. And we can be jealous of that. They may not be the theologian that we are, or they may not be the soul winner that we are, but they have a walk with God which is enviable. Sweet hour of prayer. Oh, didn't we sing that? Isn't that great? But how many of us have a sweet hour of prayer in our lives? Some of us do. Let me tell you about one individual. You've seen the name before on many hymns that we sing. Frances Ridley Havergal. She lived about the time of the U.S. Revolution against Britain. She was an English woman. And the French Revolution. But she was widely known throughout England as the consecration poet. It was said of her that she always lived her words before she wrote them. Her life was one of constant and complete commitment to God. Her many talents included being an accomplished pianist and vocalist, proficiency in 7 languages, and a keen mind. She had memorized the entire New Testament, all of the Psalms, the book of Isaiah, and the minor prophets. And all of her talents and skills and wisdom and knowledge went into everything that she did to serve God and others. So teach us to number our days that we may get a heart of wisdom. In January of 1874, the many friends of Frances Ridley Havergal received a New Year's greetings with the heading, "A Happy New Year, ever such may be." Now, a lot of us wrote out Christmas cards and mailed them out this year. We got several, probably less and less every year. Annette is now frantically writing out notes to people that, to send out, and she will continue doing that for a number of days. But Miss Havergal, for all of her strengths and all of her walk with the Lord, sent out this note accompanying that which I just read you. Following this greeting, "A Happy New Year, ever such may be," there appeared her text, which is still considered to be one of the finest New Year's prayers of consecration ever written. Listen to this. It's called "Another Year is Dawning." Another year is dawning, dear Father, let it be. In working or in waiting, another year with Thee. Another year of progress, another year of praise, another year of proving Thy presence all the days. Another year of mercies, of faithfulness and grace, another year of gladness in the shining of His face. Another year of leaning upon Thy loving breast, another year of trusting, of quiet, happy rest. Another year of witness for Thy love, another year of training for holier work above. Another year is dawning, dear Father, let it be, on earth or else in heaven. Another year for Thee. Isn't that great? Don't you wish you had that poem? Isn't that wonderful? I have it written down, so I'll have it with me always. Actually, if you open your hymn books to number 567, you will see a hymn called Another Year is Dawning. And ironically, it's the same words that she wrote in that letter. And it was, in fact, put to music, and it is a hymn in your hymn book. And it was kind of interesting the other day. I thought, man, I do this when I see a hymn I'm not familiar with. I go to YouTube and I look it up and see if anybody's playing it on there or singing it, so I kind of know the melody when I read the poem. And ironically, it told me to turn to page 277. When I look down at the bottom of this page, a higher setting may be found at number 277. So after I had pulled it up on YouTube and was listening to it, I grabbed my hymn book and turned over to page 277, which in that particular hymn book I have at home, somebody has ripped out of the hymn book. And so when the music was coming up, I thought, man, though, that sounds like a familiar tune. The church's one foundation is Jesus Christ our Lord. And it's the same tune. It's by Samuel S. Wesley, although this hymn was written by Samuel Stone. And if you were at Mountain Springs, I think the last message I did there in October, we talked about this hymn and the writing of it and its significance. But this Havergal hymn may be sung to that same tune, and if we'd had the clavinova, we might have tried it today. Another year of service, of witness for Thy love, another year of training for holier work above. Another year is dawning, dear Father, let it be, on earth or else in heaven, another year for Thee. She lived the words that she wrote according to all those that knew her. What a dear and precious saint. One of those like the three apostles that were the closest to Jesus. The rest were not. They were with Him on the Mount of Transfiguration and at other key points of His ministry. The rest of them were over there cutting Z's, We make that choice on whether or not we will be close to God or how close we will be with Him. We make a choice in this life whether we will follow the science or we will follow God. I hope you can say, as we have all said many times, as for me and my house, we will serve God. We're going to have communion. Annette, if you would, please come and disengage this video. Wish you were all here to join with us. We do wish you a merry, happy New Year this morning.